everyone. My name is Pia DeCanco Lewis. I'm one of the partners from Lewis Law Group. I'm also an attorney.
I am Brandon Lewis. I'm also a partner at the Lewis Law Group, and I am an immigration attorney as well.
So there are three things we practice. We practice immigration law, international business, and franchising. But today we really want to talk to you about how to start a law firm, finding clients in what you love to do, and achieving that work-life balance. So we have three major practice areas, as I mentioned. So Lewis Law Group was started in 2011. So some of you were just born during that year, in Santa Ana, California. And we are a boutique law firm, so we specialize on those three practices of law. We have a lot of clients. I don't know if you want to expand on some of the clients. We have families, businesses, athletes. And then on Brandon's side of the practice,
I handle our international business side and our franchising. Those are two areas that blend with our overall immigration practice, our type of clientele.
So who we are. So my name is Pia Lewis, Pia DeCanco Lewis, actually. I go by Pia DeCanco professionally. I'm a managing partner of the Lewis Law Group. So in 2011, I quit my full-time job at a law firm in LA and decided we're going to start our own law firm. So immigration law, what is it? So immigration law, as you know, there's a set of regulations put forth by our State Department that really tells us how people can live here permanently or temporarily. And so sometimes that law changes. So such as in 2001, when September 11th happened, they changed our entire immigration law system to a completely new system from than what it was before. Now we deal with the State Department. We also have the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. We also deal with ICE, which is the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. And we also deal with the U.S. Department of Labor.
So for our other areas of practice in our firm, we have our international business and our franchising. So international business essentially is we represent either U.S. companies or foreign companies who are looking to conduct business internationally.
So what are some of the best advices we received on our journey to becoming a lawyer? The first one I want to talk to you about is find your clients in what you love. So I love movies, music, and anything entertainment. Branson will tell you, our son will tell you that we go to Comic-Con every year and we take the week off for our entire practice because we love that so much, and the genre and the film and entertainment. That is where I found my clients. A majority of my clients are involved in that industry: music, movies, films, production. The other thing is, don't be afraid to start from the bottom. When I say from the bottom, don't be afraid to be the one who gets coffee for that person. That's really important. And obviously, be the employee who goes above and beyond. Bosses nowadays love it when employees are not just I clock in at 9, I leave at 5. It's like, hey, do you guys still need help with whatever it is that we're finishing? I always tell my new attorneys that work for us, you're never too important to be the one making the copies. If the paralegal or the assistant or the law clerk are busy and you're not, you can make the copies. You can put together that project. Talk to people in your industry. Talk to, as you go through high school, college, talk to people who are involved in that industry. Don't be afraid to ask that senior partner or the person that the industry owner or entrepreneur you want to be in that role someday for coffee. We love to go for a free coffee and be like, hey, let's talk about you and how you made it there. And I think Brandon will tell you, he once wasn't doing immigration.
Right, so don't be afraid to start over and shift your focus. The beginning of my legal career was in the healthcare industry, and I was doing essentially in-house research for healthcare compliance. And now, while that was interesting, I found that when it was time to venture out and do our own business and our own firm together, our own practice, I thought, okay, well, how do I transfer healthcare law into a field of healthcare law? But I found that that's a field of law that, as an independent practitioner, it doesn't really work. The healthcare law industry really focuses on positions within a hospital or within a health plan or within an insurance company. So I decided to shift focus and change and learn. I essentially spent time relearning, learning a whole new area of the legal practice.
So what are important skills? So one of the most important skills I learned was to network. Really talk to people who are doing the same thing. Figure out what your competitions are doing and how can you set that apart. And I'm going to go into that more in depth because of how we set up our law firm. And don't be afraid to be personal. Don't be afraid to shake their hand and remember they have a son or a daughter. And, how's your son or daughter doing when you meet with them? People remember you when you remember things about them. So what do we do? What is it? What is our impact? And this is very important to me because I wouldn't have started the practice of immigration law if it didn't have an impact. I knew early on during high school that I wanted to enter a field of law that actually made a difference. So when you legalize someone's status, it really changes their lives because they can now legally work. They can now go to school. They can start their life here. We had a client whose kids weren't even able to go to college until we finally ended up helping them legalize their status here. And now the kids have moved on into careers, into different things. And so that impact of you doing an application, a visa application for one person suddenly has impacted their whole family and the future of their family. So some fun facts. So this is probably like the most interesting part of our job. We do a lot of visas for bands and celebrities. Yes, Manny Pacquiao is our client. And we get to go to major concerts a lot. And our deal is always we're in the front row, as many tickets as we want to get. So most of these are foreign clients, and so some of you may not know who they are, but we also have represented a lot of different bands in Hollywood. I mean, we work on several of Harry Styles' band members, the score engineer of Despacito, some of the folks that have done Encanto, Top Gun Maverick, Mad Max Fury Road, Umbrella Academy, Captain America, a lot of the Marvel movies, the American Horror Story. We've been their attorney. And every time they have their work visa and that expires, we work on it again and we keep going and they keep renewing until we get them to a green card and then until they become a citizen. And then finally, we worked with a lot of famous companies like Hans Zimmer is a major composer. We've worked with Oprah Winfrey's Productions, Walt Disney Company, Sony, and NBC Universal. So some of the challenges. Not every single job comes with challenges, right? So the government's slow. That's one of the challenges. And we only submit to the government, like the applications, there's only one place. It's the U.S. government.
I call it moving at the speed of government. It crawls. But because there is a lot of procedure and a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of red tape. And that's why we get hired, because we know how to maneuver through that and work it. And
realizing they're also people and calling them up and just saying, hey, what's going on with this application? Is there any way we can work it out or we can push it through? So here's a very important quote that resonates to me. I mean, everybody came to the U.S. at some point somehow, right? I mean, unless your family is Native American, everyone at some point had some form of immigration in their family. And so I see that this kind of practice just, while, yes, a lot of people do it themselves, and in the past, our great-greats have done it themselves, there's certainly, the process has become much more difficult, especially with the COVID pandemic. So it's why we practice this law. It's why we have this kind of practice, because it's become complicated. So in part, just remember that, there's always some kind of immigration involved in everybody's history. So the Tide Connection, entrepreneurship, and why? Why do we do this? So in 2011, I was working for a law firm that was in LA, and I would travel long distances, and they would send me out all over the country to represent different people. And I also I was pregnant at the time and having my first child, and so I wanted a work-life balance at some point. So we talked about it. for them to be able to get everything done. And then they have a 3-day weekend, and they can take that time to be with their families. And so far, it's been really good, and it's worked out. We also understand that you should have a life outside of work. So my mother once told me, you can work hard, do everything you need to do. But when you get sick and you suddenly can no longer work hard, or you God forbid, you pass away, they're going to replace you with somebody. There's going to be somebody else who will sit at that desk. So it is very important that you have a life outside of work.
If you look at the legal industry, the law firms in an industry like this, you have these massive, large firms. And it really becomes, we see these other attorneys we know and classmates that we went to school with, who are working these long hours, these grinds, and where essentially, yes, are their salaries high? Yes, they are, very high. But if you break it down on a per hour basis on how much time they actually commit, it's not that high. So yes, are they providing a good income for their families? Sure, but at what cost? And so that was our approach. That was our idea of that. That was our motivator.
So how can you become an attorney? We're going to tell you right now. Go to college and get a degree, a bachelor's degree, in something you like. Doesn't have to be pre-law. I will tell you right now, if I had a do-over, maybe I would have done film, and maybe not pre-law. Because you can take the LSAT, and then whatever major you were, you can take it and go to law. Once you get into law school, get involved. Figure out what you want to be, what kind of lawyer you want to be. Internships, clerkships. Work hard to study for the bar. The bar exam is kind of that moment where you're not going to be a lawyer practicing law if you don't pass the bar. No one's going to ask you what your score was. No one's going to ask you how hard those 4 or 5 months of your life. You won't know your score. But once you pass, you're a practicing attorney in your state. Figure out what you love and find your first job as an attorney in that field. 3 to 5 years, check in with yourself. We always say this. A lot of our friends, 3 to 5 years is kind of their moment of, do I still want to be an attorney doing this? Or do I want to go in-house, work for a company and be their lawyer? The takeaway is you got to love what you do, guys. We only have one life to do it. And while some jobs will make you a lot of money, it may not be the job that you love and can stay with for the rest of your life. Do you have questions? Yes.
What happened during COVID?
So COVID, we had to pivot. So this is where our technology came in really well. We had to Zoom a lot of clients in. We went into the office one by one to be able to make sure. COVID slowed everything down. Immigration even closed. A lot of the government entities that we were working with just didn't have someone in the office either. So unfortunately, we're still feeling that COVID effect because cases that were filed in 2020 have not seen the conclusion. So if you're at an embassy, say in Europe or in Asia, your case is still pending to this day. Any other questions?
Yes.
What was the biggest challenge you guys faced when you guys started your firm?
So before we started our firm, obviously the biggest challenge is always, do you have clients? Because you don't get paid unless you have clients. So about 6 months before I quit my job, I had already started that process of making sure I had clients. When I walked out the door, my first meeting was literally the next day with a new client, and we signed our first client. So the challenge is always, do we have enough clients walking through the door so we have work to do? Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, what was the toughest case you ever had since starting your law firm, and why?
Oh man, the toughest case. The toughest case I've had would have to be waiver cases, where I have to bring okay, so if a family member entered illegally in the United States, well, how to resolve that is you have to be married or have a parent that's a United States citizen or green card holder. Then the process is we file the petition. Once that's approved here, they have to do a hardship waiver. The hardship waiver takes some time because they look at health, emotional, physical, and you're almost arguing saying, please forgive this person for committing this violation 20 years ago, and then setting up, and then they have to leave the country and do their appointment at the embassy, which is very scary for a lot of them because they haven't been to their country for 20 years. The hardest cases are the ones where, one of the hardest cases was the one where they didn't tell us the truth exactly on how they entered this country. So I always tell my clients in the very beginning, you have to tell me the truth because that'll affect your case. So it was hard because we had to file a second waiver at the consulate in Mexico to be able to get this wife back. And it was a 10-month lag. So she had to stay outside of the United States for 10 months while waiting for the second waiver because she neglected to tell us there was this other incident that happened.
Let's please give a warm round of applause.